Well, before I play you any more audio, let me just promise you before we get to this next section, there's going to be some good stuff at the end that you're going to like, with Tony getting fired up, talking about Jim Crockett promotions, etc. But we got to get through some of this Chris Jericho stuff because you have to hear it. You really need to see it because it's so pompous. It's amazing. It's like Hey, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, inside the actor's studio kind of shit.
Really, like, imagine if they had the most smug version of Jerry Lewis on there. And he's just blowing himself all over the place and talking about all the people he's done great things for with all his brilliant ideas that he concocted in his brilliant mind.
And how popular he is in France.
And imagine if he was sitting next to his biggest fan. And that's what you got here with Chris Jericho and Tony Khan. Let me play you some audio, Jim. Here is Chris Jericho talking about the advice he gave to the roster during the meeting.
Well, thank you. Nick Hausman, Wrestling Inc. I asked Tony about this earlier this week, but there was the mandatory backstage talent meeting that Tony confirmed happened. Reportedly, you spoke at that meeting, Chris. I was just wondering if you could tell us what you said to the roster and, you know, what kind of advice you're giving to talent and management right now at this period in AEW.
You know, I mean, the specifics don't need to be discussed, even though you can read them online, and that was one of the things that was discussed. Don't leak shit that's supposed to be private amongst us. But I think that my message always is to remind people how special AEW is. And don't take that for granted, you know, like swearing and that sort of thing. Like, all it takes is the wrong guy to see somebody say pussy or whatever the hell it is, and they're going to go, done. It happens. We know this. So I always want to remind guys that please don't...
How many times has he said dipshit on TV?
I was about to say, wasn't he the shit king of television?
For a while there. He was trying to go with GFY until Moxley said, go fuck yourself on live TV.
Yes. So this is the guy, watch your language, kids.
Ruin, or potentially ruin, this amazing world that we've created.
We don't want guys going into business for themselves.
We don't, and we can't.
Girls.
You know, and where I came from, working for Vince for 20 years, that was unacceptable. It would never happen. And I'm just trying to let people know that we're getting to the point now where these types of things are unacceptable as well. And we will start, you know, doing things that Tony would do if in the NFL or with Fulham. And we are a pro sports, multi-million-dollar company with a huge television contract, with another huge television contract coming up soon. So a lot of guys don't have that experience and don't realize just how special this is. So that's what I try and do whenever we have these types of meetings. And I have them, and Tony has them. We used to have them a lot more, but now it's a little more frequent. Just to remind guys, stay on course.
The benevolent Chris Jericho.
Yeah, there's part of the problem. That's who they're getting advice from, these young wrestlers, Chris Jericho.
Oh, my God. Stay away from the Capitol, kids. Don't listen to him.
All right, let's go to this. Hold on. Jim, here is Chris Jericho, or on this night, Lionheart.
Dave.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Good to see you guys, man.
Good to see you. So, when it comes to the mentality of you're reinventing yourself all the time, because you have to do. You've been in the business for a long time, and you have to keep things fresh. How did the Lionheart idea come in? I mean, in the sense of, you did it before, but to go back to something that it's almost like you're going back 25 years in your career.
Yeah.
I mean, did it just pop into your head one day, or was it something?
So it's an interesting story. So we built up a match with Jericho and Mox at Quake by the Lake for the title. And prior to that, I was just finishing up with Eddie Kingston. And also Moxley was involved as well. But we did Anarchy in the Arena, and we did Blood and Guts, and then we did Barbed Wire Everywhere. And I remember Mox at one point going, well, we need some kind of a gimmick. Like, we've done too many gimmicks. Like, why don't we just have a fucking wrestling match? And he was, yeah, like that. And then he texted me during the week. And Mox is a man of few words, unless he's excited, in which case he'll talk your ear off. And he said, I got this idea. What do you think? I remember I was in London for my spoken word show. And he said, I got this idea. Why don't I say, like, leave all the bullshit behind, leave the JS behind. I want the guy that I used to tape trade to see, that I watched in ECW in Japan, the Super J-Cup, Lionheart, Chris Jericho. And at first I was like, well, that's interesting, because I'm not a guy who likes nostalgia, but I was like, that's really cool. It's almost like I'd just done the Painmaker with Barbed Wire Everywhere. why can't we do Lionheart? That's actually really, really cool. And Tony loved it as well. So then I had the vest, and then I have a storage unit where I looked through boxes of stuff, and I found the kick pads, his original kick pads. I could not find.
I got to stop for a second. This is unbearable. He's so pleased with himself. It's almost like he knew this question was coming. He's so pleased with himself and the brilliant behind-the-scenes story of how Lionheart returned.
How he went through his storage unit. And at least we know now the confirmation it was Moxley's idea, because we mentioned how stupid that was and how markish that was and how narrow casting that was, that here's a guy who beat The Rock and Steve Austin at one point in the same night, was the undisputed WWF champion back when that actually meant something. But we want to remember when he worked outlaw shows in Japan. So yeah, that's Moxley, all right.
Jim, let's get this last bit of audio from Jericho. Here's Jericho's comments on MJF's return.
Chris, and Denise Salcedo from Instinct Culture. So I wanted to ask you, given your history with MJF, what did you think of his return tonight?
I loved it. I was not expecting, like I knew he was here, but I was not expecting what I saw, and I thought that's really, really cool. Now the thing is, I worked with MJF for a year, and I know how creative he is and how good he is, so it doesn't surprise me. What surprised me the most is that we got Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones, and I'm like, okay, that's some money for sure. White Zombie, Electric Head, that's a certain level.
You'd be surprised.
I would be surprised. I know that we asked for Van Halen at one point, and they wanted like $1 million or some ridiculous thing, and AC/DC wouldn't even call us back. So the Stones are much cooler and cheaper, apparently, or maybe not that cheap, but either way, I just
they played our stadium, former TIA.
That's right, that's right. So I thought it was, it doesn't surprise me at all, even though I was pleasantly surprised at how he did it. Yeah. I'm a big fan of MJF, I really am. And I said to him, when you come back, you're going to be a baby face. And he's like, I don't want to be a baby face, I want to be a face. I said, it's going to happen. He's like, I don't know what to do. I said, I'm sure The Rock said the same thing, or Steve Austin said the same thing.
Thank you, Chris.
Come back. I'll teach you. It's easy. It's easier to make people hate you than it is to make them like you. But once they start hating you, that's when they really start liking you. And he's almost at that point. That's my prediction. I think he'll be one of our top baby faces, whether he wants to be or not, very, very soon.
Thank you, Chris, for trying to make somebody else in the company with talent look phony and fake and fucking kill their gimmick. Thank you very much for that.
Really, what the fuck is that? MJF, for everything we know about the guy, does everything he can to protect his gimmick. And there's Jericho like, oh, he came to me, he was so concerned. How can I be a heel?
Yeah.
How can I do it? And he talked just like this. He talked just like, seriously.
Because he was so excited to be in my presence because I was Lionheart.
It's like a late era Liberace interview. This is so ridiculous. And you look at him and his forehead is all pulled back. I don't know what that is on top of his fucking head. And then he sits there and in the most pretentious way tries to talk like the master thespian speaking to Cannes. I mean, I really don't know. The Cannes Film Festival. That's where he is. It's so ridiculous and it's so preposterous. And the only thing that makes this concerning is the fact that Tony Khan's next to him and he's clearly the biggest fan Chris Jericho has in the entire world.
He's nodding and he's smiling and it's like he's mooning. He's mooning. Because it's his living action figures, his whole collection there. He gets to show them off.